What does it mean to live life to the fullest, train to your potential, and perform at your best?
Leave nothing on the table. That's a non-negotiable, is that I strive to be better every day. Because if I'm not on top of my game, how's anybody else going to follow me down the road?
Keep demanding more of yourself to live up to that potential and to stay hungry.
Training is progress. You know, when I look at the word training, I think of steps, baby steps to get somewhere that you want to be. And that is basically your life journey.
It's a mindset in itself, man. It's like, it's not just about, I know that for you, a lot of that's about the physical, but we're constantly in training, whether it's growing our skill sets, whether it's growing our physical bodies, whether it's growing our relationships, whatever. And all of that's a training ground. And that kind of goes back to the mindset that we just talked about.
You underestimate yourself and you don't even start. But then once you start, you often surpass what you thought you could do.
Perform at your best, mate. That's sort of what life is all about. You know, I want to have the knowledge, I want to have the fitness, the health, the ambition and drive that no matter what comes along, when that next phone call comes, I can just say yes. I don't have to worry. Just go and do it.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Live, Train, Perform podcast. I'm very excited to have Travis Jones join us for today's episode. He is an entrepreneur, a coach, a business owner, and just a generally all-round good dude. I'm really excited to have a chat to him about the lessons that he's learnt in his life in building his empire. How are you, mate? Welcome to the episode.
Mate, thank you for having me on here. I'm pumped to share the journey and share some stories that's happened over the years.
First of all, just for my listeners, can you give them a brief background on who you are, how you got into the fitness industry, where you're at right now, and that'll kind of guide the direction of the conversation.
Yeah, man, I guess for me, I've been in the fitness industry for about 18 years now, which is a long-ish time, I think. I got into it when I was just past 18. I sort of fell into the fitness industry. It wasn't my first choice. I wanted to play professional sports as a career, but unfortunately that did not go the right way. When I was 18, I was at the Canberra Raiders in off-season, and I suffered meningococcal, which is a bacterial disease, from sharing drink bottles on the football field randomly. I got rushed I went to my mate's house and passed out in his shower. They called the ambulance, and they said I had about 3 minutes to live, so they're lucky. He called the ambulance and knocked the door down and found me in the shower. And over the next 3 months, I was in intensive care for about, I flatlined 4 times. With meningococcal, it's a bacterial disease, so it starts to eat at your flesh. So I was lucky that I didn't lose my legs or anything like that. And coming out of that, I remember I was just, the dreams that you have that sort of get ripped away from you. And I tried to, come back, 2 weeks out of hospital, and then I did my knee, and then I broke my neck. And then I did a various multitude of injuries after that, as I was trying to, make my passion my career. And then flew back to Perth, and I remember sitting there thinking, what's wrong? What am I going to do now? And my strength and conditioning coach at the time, and probably the person who changed my life the most, he's like, dude, like, you're 18 years old. Like, your life is ahead of you. It's okay. Like, this might not be your path, but that means you have another path. And I sort of fell into the fitness industry then. He was, a personal training manager. He brought me into the fitness industry. I did my certificates, and I found my love for fitness was, near on par, if not greater than my love for football. And, from that, it went from, running my own personal training business to moving overseas and helping some mates open up some facilities about 10 years ago. And then coming back to Australia and opening up my own gym and expanding that to 20 locations. During that time, I created a software company with a partner, and, we help fitness professionals get clients with our software, help them get better results with clients. I have a marketing agency, and I help fitness professionals also, become financially free with business consulting as well. So that's a brief synopsis on where I thought I was going in life to, I guess 18 years later, where I ended up.
You fit in a lot of things during that very brief synopsis, mate. For those listening, I was actually introduced to Travis via Jamie O'Donnell's podcast, The Life Livers Academy, and I listened to that episode, and I was extremely inspired by you and your words and your story and just your outlook on life, man. And I reached out to you, and I was like, I need to have this guy on the show. I'd love to, have him share his knowledge, his experience, and your journey with my listeners. So that's a pretty crazy event, or a number of circumstances that essentially ripped your dreams away from you. Talk to me about what sort of an impact that had on you mentally at the time. 18-year-old kid thinking you want to play professional sports, and then all of a sudden you get this debilitating disease that, fucking takes your legs out from under you and forces you to change direction.
Yeah, man. Like, I had a pretty tough couple of years before that. Like, the year before that, I found my dad, he had been pushed off the balcony of his house. I found him dead. So I found him when I was 17, and that was my last year of high school. And then, I got picked up. I played for Emerging States Australia. I was still mentally not rocked, but I was trying to find my way. And then the next year, within a year, then that gets ripped from me. And I'm just wow, maybe, for me, even under 12 football, right? So I remember when I was in under 12s, I got the coaches award. Okay. And the coaches award, for those who don't know, that's the kid who tries the best, but he's not the best. So I remember when I was in under 12s, and I got the coaches award at the end of the season. And I was I am never going to get the coaches award ever again in my life. This is the last time I'm ever going to do that. And I practiced all off season. I was okay, I need to become better. So I practiced. I was a hooker. I was I'm going to practice my left to right pass, my right to left. I'm going to practice my off the speed mark, off sprinting. And I would work so hard that off season. The next season I got best and fairest, and I played for state and Emerging States Australia, and it kept going from there. And I think from being 12 and understanding, I was lucky that I just wanted to work hard. And I realized that, if you work hard at something and you sacrifice everything else in your life, that you'll get your dreams. And I think for me, again, the same sort of scenario when I was 18 and sort of had that ripped away from me, I was okay, well, I just need to find something else I need to work hard at now, and I need to become the best at that, and I need to try and, change as many lives as possible. And that's when I fell into that fitness industry, and I'm well, now I just have to try and become the best at this. And I focused on so many short courses on trying to get results, and, delved so hard into the fitness industry, because you can't change the past. You can only change, the direction that you're heading right now. And, I also knew then, as no one cares about you complaining. Everyone has dealing with their own stuff. So it's and if you're sitting in the corner just complaining and not doing anything about it, then it's your complaints are falling on deaf ears as well. If you're trying to do something about it and you're going, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, then people want to help you. But if you're just sitting there in the corner complaining and you're not actually trying to help yourself, well, no one also wants to help you. So I was I would work my hardest, I would put in the hours, and I would grind it out. Probably wasn't the best coach at the start. I was even the worst at sales as well. I always had this fear of rejection. I remember when I was 18 trying to sell people, I would do these 3 intro sessions. At the end of the intro sessions, I'd be hey, if you want to stay on, just reach out to me. And I had this fear of selling people, but then you put in the repetitions, you understand your worth, and you go, okay, cool, I'd have to sell people. I have to charge more, because that means they'll respect my time even more, and they'll put more effort in. And then I just kept learning and trying to grow. And about 4 or 5 years into the fitness space, I felt I knew a lot. I also knew I needed to learn more, but I was I need to start learning more about business now, not just how to get results with people. So then I started delving into the fitness space. And I was hey, I really want to learn how to market, how to sell, how to, time management, energy management, how to get the most out of myself so I can get the most out of others with my business. And my perspective shifted when I opened my gyms, because you always want to strive to become better. And I was at the first gym, I was I just need 216 members. I'm going to charge them $50 a week. And I'm going to make $570,000, and I'm going to change their lives. And I know those numbers because they were the first numbers when I opened my business that I ever had 10 years ago. And I had RBT for the last 10 years now. And then as you grow, it's wow, I achieved this. And then you're you set your dreams a little bit bigger. But every single time you change your dreams or you set new dreams and goals, you have to reflect and ask yourself, okay, who do I need to become now to achieve that? You can't just become, the same version of you can't chase a bigger dream, can't chase a bigger goal, because your business will only grow as much as you grow yourself. So I need to become 2.0 version of me, 3.0 version of me. Back when I started, control my emotions as well as I could. I would get frustrated a little bit faster than I do now. I wasn't as good as my energy management or time management, was all over the shop. And I knew that I had to become more disciplined in those areas of my life and really control my focus day to day, focus hour to hour, and focus over the year to drive the business forward, to change the amount of lives. And I kept shifting the goalposts, and I had to keep evolving as a person.
Mate, that was a fucking amazing passage. That was brilliant, man. Now, there were so many things that you said there that my cogs were ticking, and I was like, I want to touch on this, and I've been writing things down as we've gone along. But one thing that stood out for me was you spoke about discipline, you spoke about time management, and I'm an ambassador for Swiss 8, which is a proactive mental health program. I'm a former soldier. I'm a veteran of Iraq, East Timor, Afghanistan. One of my mates started the company Swiss 8 to allow people to structure in and schedule the important aspects of their life after one of his mates took his own life. And those principles are sleep, nutrition, discipline, time management, fitness, personal growth, mindfulness, and minimalism. Now, I'm sure there's been multiple seasons of life where you've had those principles in different orders, but for you at the moment, which one of those principles is most important?
Right now, especially after COVID, is discipline. Discipline is like the hierarchy. I think, the 1, 2, 3 for me is discipline, and that gives me my time management, and that gives me focusing on my sleep. Because if I don't have my discipline on point, that means my time management, I don't get what I need to do during the day done, and I'll shift that later in the day because I just have to get it done, right? So it's you just work a little bit longer, and it's because you weren't focused during the day on a day-to-day basis. So then it's my discipline gets my time gets my sleep. If I don't get to sleep on time, then I don't wake up in the morning. If I don't wake up in the morning, I normally wake up about 4 a.m. and then my fitness has to push into the day the next day. That means it takes more time away from the next day to get the stuff done. It just ends up being this snowball effect into, my meditation time got wrecked. That means I didn't hit my mindfulness. Now I can't read my book because I normally read my books in the morning. It's every single one of those 8 things sort of falls off the radar, or it starts to get squashed into we only have 24 hours in a day, and we all have the same 24 hours, and I try and get as much as I can out of mine. So, if you don't have the discipline, everything else, falls away or falls by the wayside, and you're just trying to get it back. And so I would definitely say discipline is the top one.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I'm the same. Discipline's a big one for me. Obviously, being ex-military, if you lose that discipline, then you lose your time management. And there's this flow-on effect. And every single one of those principles, they all impact each other. They're all interrelated. Has there been other times in your life where maybe another one of those principles is more important for you when you're building a business, when you're, starting out a new relationship, or trying to get back on your feet after getting out of hospital from a meningococcal?
Yeah, man. I think for me, mindfulness is more important now than it ever was. I've got so many moving parts. So if I don't get my meditation in first thing in the morning, I feel like me grounding myself, my morning routine is I get up, I move first thing for 20 minutes. After I move, I meditate and I calm myself and I get set. After I move, I'll read, and then I'll go into just my goals and what I need to do for the day. So that's smack bang straight in first thing in the morning. But if I miss my meditation, I feel I'm more distracted throughout the day. I don't know if that's a placebo effect of my mindfulness and meditation, or if it's a direct correlation. But for me, mindfulness is so big right now. And some people who haven't done meditation or practiced mindfulness before, they might think it's foo-foo. They're mate, why would you spend 20 minutes on that? You could do something else. It's me spending 20 minutes on that gives me focus so I can do everything else. So I think there's that part of thing that the mindfulness is massive now. I come back probably about 4 years. I think personal growth was a big thing. I was at a ceiling in my business, and who I was at, probably between 4 to 6 years ago. I became a dad 6 years ago. So like after I had Jax and then I had Finn 3 years ago, well, my wife had them, I just supported her. After we had our kids, I was like, I want to be a dad. And I want to be the best dad I can be. And I want to be a great role model. So I was like, I sort of listed the character traits of what I believe the best version of me could be. And then I listed the traits that I currently was. And then I looked at the gap between the two. And I knew that I had to work on closing the gap in between my patience. I had to close the gap in between my ability to choose the correct emotions. I had to close the gap in allowing things outside of my control stay outside of my control and not frustrate me as a human being. I had to also know that now my time management, my energy management was so much more crucial than ever before because the constraints placed upon my life now are real. You know, when you don't have kids, you can work like 20 hours a day. Like you don't have the same constraints. But when you have kids, like, and if for me personally, the way I want to show up for my kids is I don't want to work when I'm around them. Like I want to be present. I want to be truly there for them so I could be that role model for them. So I was like, great, like I need to close the gap in my personal growth and I need to really focus on my energy management and my time management. I think time management came first. And then after that, though, the next couple of years, I shifted from my my time management to my energy management because my time management was only as good as my energy management because I could bang a bunch of stuff in and then I get to the end of the day, I'd be like, oh, I feel like I was drunk because I just wasn't focusing on optimizing my energy through the day. And over the last 2 years, it's like, okay, I need to make sure I am focusing on breaks throughout my day, working in 90-minute meridians, making sure that I would go for a walk after every 90 minutes so I could, shift my focus, reset, breathe, and then go again. And I think that's where my energy management came in. Also making sure I don't bang the wrong tasks up against each other. So I'm focusing on the highest performing tasks first thing in the morning that require the most amount of energy. And I push the tasks that I truly actually love towards the end of the day because I would manifest energy to do them because I love to do them. So I think as you grow, if you can have some self-awareness, and I think my self-awareness had to increase, and that's why I was focusing on my personal growth as well. I became more self-aware with what I needed to work on at the pivotal time to get to the next level of myself.
Again, mate, another amazing passage. And so many things, again, came up for me then. And one of those was mindfulness. And I used to be the same, man, being a former soldier, growing up playing rugby and I actually dated a yoga teacher for like 5 years and she was always trying to get me into the yoga and the meditation, the mindfulness stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't need that shit. That's just foo-foo, whatever. But I've told this story multiple times on the podcast and I was a sniper in Afghanistan and 2 weeks into our trip, my team was ambushed and my team leader was shot and, I had to drag my mate into cover and patch him up, fight for our lives, etc., put him on a helicopter. Next day, went out on patrol, got shot at again, burst of machine gun fire, fucking tore up the ground between my mate and I. And for the next couple of weeks, I was struggling to sleep and, it was affecting my ability to perform. And I soon focused on what was within my control. I never got any training around it. I didn't know what I was doing. I simply just started focusing on my breathing and I was counting my breath every night. And every time my mind would wander, I would start again. I'd get to, 20 breaths, whatever. My mind would go all over the place. We're going here tomorrow. I know it's a dodgy area. We're probably going to get lit up. Bad shit's probably going to happen. And then I was like, don't fucking focus on that. Like you can't control that. Come back to your breath. Focus on your breathing. Allow those thoughts to pass. And that's what I did. And some nights was harder than others. But building that habit allowed me to get to sleep and allowed me to wake up feeling refreshed, getting restful sleep and being able to get out on patrol and perform and do my job. And it wasn't until years later when I was telling that story to one of my mates and he actually got out of the army and used yin style yoga as an alternate therapy for PTSD. And I told him that story and he's like, dude, you've been meditating for years. You just didn't know it. And I was like, and ever since then, man, I was like, fuck, that's a really good point. So now I implement some breathing into my everyday. And one of my favorite fables is the story about some lumberjacks. There's two lumberjacks that are competing for the world wood chopping competition, and they have 6 hours to chop as much wood as possible. The starter gun rings out. One of them bangs away for the entire 6 hours. The other one, every 45 minutes, picks up his axe, walks away, comes back 15 minutes later. And at the end, the dude that, worked for an hour and a half less chopped twice as much wood. And everyone was like, what were you doing in that 15 minutes? And he goes, sharpening my axe. And for me, that's what mindfulness is. And that's that working with your energy levels, that energy management that you spoke about. I've spoken about ultradian rhythm in one of my previous podcasts, kind of similar to the Pomodoro technique, where you're looking at your energy levels throughout the day, and then you're allocating your energy levels to certain tasks and certain time periods, as you said. How did that system come about for you? Like, what brought your awareness to that? Was it a course that you did? Was it books that you read? Was it a podcast? Like, how did that knowledge come about, and how long has it taken you to build those habits and start putting these processes in place and refining those techniques?
Yeah, man, I think I've been doing it probably about 6 years now to different extents. And I started talking about Pomodoros maybe 6-7 years ago. And I used to be focused on the Pomodoros. And then for me, I moved past the Pomodoros because I know that I think it's our cognitive ability declines after about 40 to 50 minutes. I believe I'm better than that, so I go for 90. But for me, I like to have these deep work blocks, and I think I started with 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. But what would happen is I would just get in my groove at that sort of 20-minute mark, and I'd be like, and then I would just snooze the time off, and I would go another 25 minutes. And for me, it depends on the focus I'm doing, but over the years I shifted from the Pomodoros, and I think there's been so many books I've read, from the 12-week year to I'm going to bastardize some of the things, but I've done Michael Hyatt's courses. I've done so many courses. So again, what I'll do is I'll see if someone's doing a productivity course. I'll buy it. And I don't care if it's $1,000 or $500 or $50. I'll buy it and I'll skim through it, and I'll try and get one piece of information. Mm-hmm. And if that can implement that one piece of information, then I know the other 99 pieces of information, that one piece is worth it, because life is about acquiring new knowledge. Even the minutiae or the nuances can shift you forward, and I want to be as productive as possible. And for me, the 90 minutes sort of goes on earlier on in the day, and that first 90 minutes is truly about education and content creation. And my door's closed. No one can talk to me. This is my deep work time blocks. And I'll try and get 2 deep work time blocks in place to start the day. And then after that, I will shift to a 50-minute and 10-minute. So my afternoon is 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, because I feel that for me, my energy starts to decline as my day goes on. James Clear talks about it actually in one of his habits courses as well. He was talking about your decision fatigue as your day goes on, and I'm sure you know everything about decision fatigue and focus. So he was talking about, there was a study with the judges and parolees coming up for parole. Yep. And what happens is, just before, it's 15 to 30 minutes before lunch break and before the afternoon break, any parolee coming up to try and get parole, there was a 0% chance they were going to get parole. So if you were in jail coming up for parole and you're what's my time slot? 30 minutes before lunch. It's just let me stay in for another 6 months and get me back up to morning, because the judge literally goes to the default decision because they're suffering decision fatigue and doesn't even look at the data, and they just default to no. And I think that's the same for us. As our day progresses, our decision fatigue declines, so we have to increase our ability to manage our energy even more. So that's why I shift from 90 minutes to 50 minutes, and I go for a 10-minute walk every hour, as from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And it's just playing around with it and what works for you, and that's what works best for me.
Yeah, that's an excellent point to finish with, because that was exactly where I was going next, because I did just write down, you spoke about acquiring knowledge, but you clearly also apply knowledge, because there's so many fucking people, man, that read all the books, do all the courses, listen to all the podcasts, and they have the knowledge, but they don't take any action. There's so many people that want to gather as much knowledge as possible, and they want to have all the answers before they start putting one foot in front of the other. But, that's not where the magic is. Yes, you need to acquire some knowledge, but you don't need to have all the answers. Start moving in one direction, and then, as you start applying this knowledge, then you start refining that knowledge. So something you spoke about then that really intrigued me was you start your day with deep work blocks, and then you finish your day with, things you enjoy doing. Now, most people, they're going to do things they enjoy doing at the start of the day when they have, no decision fatigue, when they have their energy levels, when they're feeling good, they procrastinate, they do things that are easy. Whereas you're much better off doing things that are hard, that require your concentration, your energy levels at the start of the day, and then push the things you enjoy doing later on in the day, because you don't need to get yourself up for those things. You're already looking forward to them. That's an excellent point, man.
Yeah, man. I think like the people who aren't, it's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? I think wisdom is you apply the knowledge you have, and then you get feedback from applying it, and then you create your own iterations on that knowledge. Everyone can acquire knowledge, but not everyone gets wisdom. And I think that's, I don't know if that's a quote somewhere, but that's my belief on it.
We'll make it a quote, mate. We'll hashtag it. Yeah, no, that's a good point, man. And I've spoken about this before, is the difference between data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Like, I wear a Fitbit, right? And the Fitbit, tells me how many steps I take throughout the day. So that's the data. It tells me how many steps I take. I don't use it for calorie burn or anything like that. I just use it for my steps. I use it for my sleep tracking. That's the data. That data, those numbers, then give me information. That information, then, if I know what to do with that information, that gives me knowledge. But it's only when I have the knowledge of what that information and data means, and I start applying what I understand, that it becomes wisdom. I think that's a really good point, man. And, a lot of people confuse knowledge with wisdom. And it's not about collecting and acquiring information. It's about applying information, and then, as you said, adjusting it, because so many people, I'm reading the 5 a.m. Club at the moment. I'm not sure if you've read that book. Yeah. Really good book, man. There's so many good principles in that. I like Robin Sharma's writing style. I've read The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari twice, I think. I'm really enjoying the 5 a.m. Club, but so many people will read that book and they're like, all right, cool, I'm going to start getting up at 5 o'clock. And it's like, well, if you're getting up at 7 o'clock and then you start getting up at 5 o'clock, you're probably going to be fucking tired. It'll last a few days while you're motivated, but then, that lack of sleep is going to start catching up with you. And, here's the thing, like, take the principles from it. The principles are what's important, like the principles are get up. I just recorded a podcast on this the last couple of days, and I was talking about, I've been getting up at 6 o'clock every morning, but I'm leaving for work at 7 o'clock, and I'm, as you said before, I'm leaving that flow state that I just get myself into, and I'm walking out the door. So now I'm getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm using that first hour and a half as my deep work block, get my creative juices flowing. And over time, I'm going to start adjusting those timings. And I think that's a really good point, man, is, take these principles. Like, for example, let's relate this to nutrition. Like, we could recommend the paleo diet to most people, and that could be a really fucking good baseline diet, okay? But then you need to manipulate that for your own individual circumstances. I think that's important. It's an important principle for everything in life.
Yeah, I think this is what I look at, right? So whenever I start anything, it's what is the least path of resistance to start momentum. So it's like, how can I start getting those notches on the board for wins? And then how can I then, once I have momentum, because an object in motion tends to stay in motion, right? So then how can I make those wins harder and harder? So again, with RBT, with my gyms, we start people with similar to paleo, but it's like a portion control diet with an allowed foods list. And I'm like, dude, aren't you about flexible dieting and calories and macros? I was like, man, like if someone comes in and they don't know what the hell they're eating and I start telling them calories and macros, I'll completely lose them out the door. So I need to make it simple. I need to make it easy. And I give them small, simple steps to move them forward. And from there, then we'll start to make things complex as they already start to have momentum and they start to win.
Yeah, great point. It's much easier to maintain momentum than it is to build it. So that's something I want to talk about as well, actually. We kind of touched on it earlier. When people get busy, when they're under the pump, man, when life gets in the way, the first thing that goes out the window is training, then nutrition, then sleep. And for me, those three things have a massive fucking impact on how your day-to-day goes. It impacts your energy levels, it impacts your sleep, your performance, your ability to recover, your ability to train, cognitive function, like your mood, attitude, libido, like it affects everything, man. Do you have any advice for people that, you know, when life does start getting a little bit stressed out, you know, what's some tools and techniques that you've used to kind of keep yourself on track and keep yourself disciplined and be able to maintain that momentum rather than losing it and having to rebuild that momentum again?
Yeah, I think it's similar to like business. When you start trying to start a business, all right, it's like, what's my minimal viable profitability for this business for it to succeed? I think you can do the same. Like, what is my minimal viable training routine for me to still succeed? And it could be 10-minute workouts. So I think what we have in society is we have an all or nothing mentality. And I think that's when it lets us down. That happens so much in nutrition, or someone looks at the time. I'm lucky I'm working above the gym right now, so I can walk down for 10 minutes and train and come up. But it's like, you know, for someone, they look at the time, it's like, oh, I only have time for a 20-minute workout today. My routine takes 40 minutes. It's like, dude, you can get a lot done in 20 minutes. It's like, what are you training for? If you're training for life, then change your routine. If you know you're moving into a hard part of your year, or it's going to be tough the next couple of months, it's like, cool. Go find someone, help them create 20-minute routines for you, and use those routines to make sure your cardiovascular is on point, making sure you're getting a little bit of stimulus for those muscle mass. Like, you might not be trying to gain like mass over this time and, you know, put on some lean mass, but like, you could go, I'm going to maintain, or if not lose my body fat over the next 12 weeks with short, effective workouts. And then the same sort of thing, like, I don't track my calories at the moment, but I have enough nutrition IQ to understand, okay, I know that if I'm having a bigger dinner, I'll have a smaller lunch. Or if I'm going out this weekend, I'll cut down my Friday and Thursday sort of food just slightly. And I do it more of a like intuitive approach. But if you don't have that knowledge, then you do have to be a bit more strict. Or you might go, hey, I don't have time for this whole meal planning, calorie counting thing. I'm going to switch to portion control for the next 8 weeks and make sure on my plate there's a palm of protein, there's a fist of carbs, there's 2 fists of veg and a thumb of fats. And it makes it easy for you. You need to have a default version which is so simple that it's impossible to fail at.
Yeah, brilliant. I always talk about standard operating procedures, SOPs.
Yeah, bro.
That's your fallback, man. That's your default. Like, you've got to have a default, because if you don't have that default, again, when decision fatigue kicks in, you're fucking tired, you don't have anything around, like, you default to what you do all the time. So if you practice, you know, building good habits and making good decisions, then that's going to be your default.
Yeah, I think with that, just as well, just so I can, like, your SOPs has to be in line with your character. So I think if people don't have ingrained understanding of who they are as a person, it's hard for them to make decisions. So it's like, what is your character traits? Well, you know, do you live with integrity within yourself? Do you say what you said you're going to do? Are you an honest person? Are you honest to everyone else and yourself, or you're honest just to everyone else and you let yourself, sort of slip with your habits and behaviors? You know, like, I think if you can go, these are my 4 or 5 character traits that create my identity as a human being, and every decision is made from these character traits, then your fallback ends up being a lot easier, because you're just living in line with your values, your character, and shifting into your identity as a human being.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. And that brings up something again for me. At the start of lockdown, I'm in Thailand. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at Tiger Muay Thai, and at the start of the year, I went on a 6-week trip. I went to Japan, I went to Bali, did my yoga course, came back to Thailand. I got back to Thailand about 10 days before lockdown kicked off. And we were in lockdown for a couple of months there. And, I actually wrote down my values. I wrote down the things that were important to me, and I made sure that I did those things every single day. If it's important, do it every single day. And the number one thing was my health and immune system. So that meant that I prioritized sleep. That meant that I was getting sunshine every day. That meant that I was getting movement. That meant that I was, going through my mindfulness practices and, eating good, healthy food in the right quantities and all that type of stuff. And I think that's really important, is understanding what your values are. But I don't think many people these days actually fucking sit down and write out what their values are. They don't have the hard conversation with the man in the mirror to ask those tough questions, like what's fucking important to me right now? Because again, the seasons of life change, and your priorities are going to change in line with those seasons, in line with what's happening in your life year after year. So is that something that you do often or regularly?
Yeah, man. Like I sort of reflect on my values and my character traits on a sort of a quarterly basis. I'll reflect weekly at the end of every week, and it's like, what went right? What went wrong? What can I be better at? So that's a weekly basis. And on a quarterly basis, I'll literally go over the last 90 days, how was I in my integrity? How was I in my honesty? How was I in my discipline? How was I in my respect? And I'll look at externally, how was I with these things in an external factor? And then how I was to myself on these things. And I can rate myself 1 to 10 on these factors, and I can give myself a bit of a sentence around that as well. And it's like, okay, well, you were a 7 out of 10 on, your respect. And it's like, why didn't you do what, internally? And it's like, okay, well, what would I've had to be a 10 out of 10? And it's like, I can write the 2 sentences down. I can see what the gap was over the last 90 days in my respect internally to myself. And then I can go, what do I need to do to change over the next 90 days to close that gap to be a 10 out of 10 respect or to myself over the next 90 days? And then all of a sudden, that is my number one task that I need to do. I need to upgrade my lowest performing value set that I live by on a personal note.
How did you get to that point? Because that takes a lot of introspection, and that takes a lot of honest conversations, and it takes, being a critical thinker. It takes, assessing everything in your life and being fucking honest with how you performed, and then going, all right, I'm not up to standard here. Like, how did that process come about for you?
Yeah, man, it's very interesting. I think you evolve over time, right? I think for me, I've never been someone who needs to sit with a bunch of people. If I'm around people too often, it kind of gets on me, and I need very few friends. I need very few interactions with those friends, and I just need my wife and my kids, and essentially to make sure I'm serving my friends and the outside world as much as possible. So to do that, I needed to. I prefer to spend a lot more time with myself and go, how can I be better for the world to show up? And I think that came, over time, really. And I think I moved between I was 18 to I was 26. I lived in a different city every year for so I was 6, 7 cities over the 8-year period. And because I kept being transient with where I was living, my network kept changing. And because my network kept changing, I have friends around the world, everywhere. But I don't need to see them all the time. Like my sister, I was talking to her yesterday. She's in Perth. I'll talk to my sister once every 3 to 4 months. For someone to know that I care about them doesn't mean I have to talk to them. They just know that if they reach out to me, I'll get on a plane and get there. And I think that's my relationship with humans and everyone else out there, but that means my relationship with myself has to be so much more in line. And I think we're all different, and some people need to talk to everyone all the time. That's just not me. Mm-hmm. And because I don't talk to everyone all the time, I talk to myself more often, which means I get to try and work on myself as much as I can so I can be better for everyone else.
Yeah. You can't pour from an empty cup.
No.
And I used to run health retreats with my ex-girlfriend down in Tasmania, and we'd get all these housewives and things like that come on these retreats, and we would always ask who's the most important person in your life, and they would always say my husband, my children, whatever. They're always doing something for everybody else. And it's when was the last time you did something for yourself? And they're like, oh, I'm doing this for myself. I'm like, all right, when was the last time? So and that's the thing, man. It was like a light bulb went off where they started understanding that for them to be at their best for their husbands, their partners, their children, their family, those people around them, they needed to be at their best themselves. And this is something that a lot of people don't really understand. And we are very fucking good at distracting ourselves. That's the world that we live in. We're distracted by everything, and, everything's constantly drawing our attention. But how much time do we actually spend, giving ourselves the attention that we deserve, but the attention that we need to be the person that we want to be?
Yeah, I think we're in a society that, because of the media and because of the way we've evolved, we're a society full of victims and not many heroes. And when I say heroes, it doesn't mean someone like yourself going and fighting for your country. Like, it's like heroes of your own story. It's like you need to be the hero of your life, and instead we live our lives at effect instead of at cause. And we say, I can't make that money because I didn't have that education, that background, that support. I can't get there's no men out there. Or there are like so many females over the years of, like, you hear it, like, there's no good men. It's like, okay, well, how many dates you been on? Oh, one date in 6 months. As well, there's no men out there because you're not even dating, right? Like, we place these limitations, we tell ourselves these stories, and all of a sudden we close ourselves into an environment or a life that we've chosen, yet we tell everyone else that it was given to us, and we're in this closed box that we can't even fight out of anymore because we're living inside all our limitations, where instead it's like, okay, your health right now is in direct correlation to the choices you made over the last 12 months. The amount of money in your bank account is in direct correlation to the amount of effort. It's like the amount of money you make is in direct correlation to the amount of value you give to the marketplace. So if you're not making much money, well, you're not fucking serving the marketplace. That's why. So actually help more people and you'll make more money. Your relationship is in direct correlation to the amount of support you're giving to your partner. And I think if we start taking a bit more ownership over our own life and, like, instead of blaming, making excuses and justifying our circumstances, people, one, they'll have a reality check. Two, they go, cool, now I've taken ownership and responsibility, I can do something. Because you can never move forward in life if you don't believe that you're the reason that your life is where it is, and it's because of you. And it's like, if we think it's because of someone else, we'll continue to be stuck in that box for the rest of our life.
Yeah, man, that's another brilliant point, mate. I'm loving this conversation. And it reminds me of, again, another one of my favorite stories, fables, whatever you want to call it. And it's that people look at the world through windows and mirrors. And, there's two types of people in the world. When things are going good, one person looks out the window and is thankful for the circumstances that they've been dealt, the people around them, the support that they've had. And then when things are going bad, they look in the mirror and they say, what have I done wrong to put me in this position? And then there's the other people who, when things are going bad, they look out the window and they start pointing the finger at their circumstances, bad luck, the people around them, their environment, etc. And then when things are going good, they look in the mirror and they start patting themselves on the back. And I think, the stories that we tell ourselves and our ability to reflect on who we are as a person and be aware and connect the dots with everything, all of the decisions and actions, behaviors that have led us up to this point. I think that's very important. I think that's the first point in change, is awareness. You need to be fucking aware of where you're at right now and what's gotten you into that situation before you can then start moving in the direction you want to be moving in.
Yeah, man. I think James Clear talks about, it's like every action you take is a vote towards your future self. So, you lying to your partner, like, that's a vote towards you having a really shitty relationship. So are you willing to take this vote right now? Yes or no? Like, where do you want your future to be? Like, you indulging in overeating, like, that's a vote towards you becoming overweight. Is that where you want to be? Like, it's like, because every decision you make, as soon as you make it once, then it's easier to make it again. And when you make it twice, well, that's when it starts to become a habit. All right. And it's a very slippery slope towards mediocrity. And if you want a mediocre life, that's good on you. Go for it. But you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast.
Exactly. Again, something I want to touch on there is managing your expectations and matching your expectations to your commitment level. And the analogy that I like to use is, I'm sure you can probably add to this as well, but I quite often get a lot of people coming to me and, let's say I've got a weight loss client, for example, and they're like, hey, I want to lose 10 kilos by this time. All right, cool. How important is this to you? Oh, it's very important. All right. How committed are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Oh, it's a 10. All right, cool. how likely is it for you to be able to start tracking your calories? Oh, I don't really like doing that. All right. What about, tracking your steps? What about tracking your movement? What about getting 8 hours sleep? What about, drinking 3 liters of water? What about eating 5 serves of vegetables? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. I'm like, all right, now you're a 9, now you're an 8, now you're a 7, now you're a 6, and I think that is something that people don't really understand is they want these fucking they set these big audacious goals, but they don't have the structure, they don't have the plan, they don't have the roadmap to get them to that place. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, man, I think when I start to talk about anyone on a journey, whether it be business or health and fitness or anything, it's like, okay, where are you? Okay, what are the standards in your life that you have currently right now that have led you to being in this way? So you tell me all the shitty ass standards that have taken you up until this point. Now, to get you to the point of where you want to be, you're going to have to sacrifice those poor standards and adopt new ones.
And the stories.
Because you can't, and the stories, right? The stories. It's like, I don't have time. It's like, no, we all have 24 hours in a day. I train and I have over 100 staff. You can train too. Right? Like, I have a lot of stress and I have 2 young kids. Like, it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of priorities. So when you start to tell people to change the wording, because we're interesting with human beings, we'll start to manipulate the stories or the words that we choose around the stories to make ourselves feel better. And when you actually hold a mirror up into someone's face and you reframe the story they're telling themselves to a truth rather than the bullshit they're talking about, then it's a hard reality check. And it's like, this story might be hard for you to hear, but I'm going to be your best friend because all your friends are telling you it's okay. They're lying to you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you it's not okay because you being 15 kilos overweight, you're going to die earlier. Is it okay for you to die earlier and not see your grandkids? You tell me yes or no. Okay, cool. Is training 3 times a week worth seeing your kids grow up? Yes? Okay, fantastic. So now we can fit it into your life. And you just have to be honest with people because they're not going to be honest with themselves. And I think that's such a hard thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Before you try and help someone, before you try and fix someone, you need to ask them if they're willing to give up what's making them unhappy or unhealthy. And going back to what you said before, as coaches, we do need to have that fucking honest conversation with people. And, some people hate us for it and, they won't employ us on that basis because they feed into the victim mentality where they have these yes men, these yes people around them all the time that, allow them to sacrifice and allow them to sabotage their own efforts.
Yeah, dude, I think like with a coach, they're paying us to change their life. So we have to go out of integrity. I need to be honest with you. So I can have someone that pays me money and I can be their friend and never get them a result that they're paying me for. Or I could potentially lose them as a client, but actually be the first person to be honest with them in their life and potentially actually change their life for the rest of their life. Now, for me, I would choose to live with integrity every day of the week because that's one of my driving values.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. That reminds me of a client that I had many, many years ago. Or sorry, it wasn't a client, it was a potential client. So this chick was like 200 kilos, man. And I went around to her place for a consultation and, I had a conversation with her. I was like, what's the deal? Why are we here having this conversation? And she's like, my doctor said that, if I don't lose at least 20 kilos in the next year, like I'm probably going to die a fucking early death. So I went to her cupboard and, with her permission, I asked her if I could have a look around and I pulled out 3/4 of the junk food in her cupboard, man. And I was like, look, if we're going to work together, you need to donate this or give it to someone else or get rid of it. If you're willing to do that, then we can work together. And she wasn't willing to do that, man. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person for you. And, years later, she actually messaged me and she said, thank you. Like that was the wake up call that I needed, even though I didn't work with her, but it was the wake up call that she needed because I wasn't just going to be the person that was going to rock up and take her fucking money and, take her excuses.
Yeah, dude, I think like as you touched on then, I think the standing point to changing your life is to changing your environment. And I think, again, with anything, if all your mates cheat on their missus and you're friends with them, you're going to be the guy who cheats on your girlfriend or your wife because they've made it okay, because in your environment, it is okay. So you justify it to yourself. Oh, Bob, Harry, and Charlie, they do it. So, I'll do it too. Like if all of them...
Not real people.
No, exactly.
Not my mates.
But if like for yourself, and it's the same as like, if one of your friends is obese and they live within 50 kilometers of you, I think it's like you're 53% likely to be overweight or obese as well. Like your environment, your connections, what's in your house, the people you surround yourself with, the income level, you are the average of them all, right? So like if you want to change your life and everyone else around you is overweight, like unfortunately, the easiest way is to find new friends. If you want to learn a language, you move to the country, you immerse yourself in that language, and that's the fastest way to learn a language. If you want to lose weight, find new friends, get in a community and culture of people who are on the same journey as you and have better habits than you, and you'll adopt those habits. You want to make more money? Find people making more money and model their success. Like, guys, you have to divorce your past to marry your future. And I think that is so crucial. And divorce the people that are in your past sometimes if they're holding you back there, so you can marry the people that are going to take you towards the person you're actually potentially, or you have the potential to become.
You can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. That's profound, man. I mean, it's easier said than done though. I've done this multiple times in my life, being ex-military, getting out of the army, starting my own business, personal training, strength and conditioning, etc. And, I've cut a lot of people away from my life, and a lot of it has been, not so much intentional, but just, again, the seasons of life, that's just what happened. I move away, change my environment, etc. And those people just fall off. But do you have any advice for people that might be listening to this episode and going, oh, fuck, I can see some of the people that are surrounding me are not necessarily the best influence, and, maybe I'm choosing to hang out with them too much, and then I'm adopting some of their habits and behaviors and things like that. If people are listening right now and they can see that they're surrounded by some of these people, like, what's some advice that you can give to them?
So there's a couple of things. Like when it comes to, improving your habits, what I would normally tell people, if you don't want to let go of your friends, only hang out with them in environments that you can control. So it's like if Jenny always wants to go and have dinner with you and you end up having 3 bottles of wine because you can't say no to Jenny, like meet her at on a walk on a Saturday morning. Like she's probably not going to drink 3 bottles of wine going for a walk on a Saturday morning. If she is, it's time to let her go 100%. But
she's bought her own bottles.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like if you can't control them and you're not willing to let them go, control the environment that you meet them in. And also, again, I think it comes back to our earlier conversation around your values. If one of your values you live by is honesty, and you don't tell Jenny that she is actually holding you back with your health and fitness, or you feel, because your perspective on the situation, because she might not even see that perspective, hey, Jenny, every time I go out with you, I feel like I take 2 steps back with my health and fitness because my goals are this, and they're so important to me. And when I'm around you, I feel that I lose sight of my goals. So would you be able to help me with my goals and support me, because it is so important to me to actually get there? And then she might go, yeah, I thank you for telling me. I didn't even realize. And you were honest with her. So that honesty is the first step. And then if she doesn't realize at all, she's like, whoa, can I do this with you? And then you might have had a conversation that changed her life. Or she might be like, you're a dickhead. And it's like, okay, Jenny, it's time for us to part ways. And I think like honesty is always the best policy with this, because that's crucial. That's like with weight loss and environments, as far as relationships, as far as your income level, like you should buy your way into rooms where people are making more money than you. And it's like, if I want to make like $300K, I want to make $1 million. It's like, okay, where is a room where I'm going to be the person who makes the least in that room? How can I buy my way into that room and sit in that room and be surrounded by those people who are making that money and go, okay, what are they doing? What can I study? What can I learn? What are your actions? What were your actions? How did you shift? And you'll literally like buy them lunch, like buy them do whatever you can to actually ask questions and be like a detective with those people, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I had 5 conversations now and they're all doing these similar things, like Pareto's principle, right? 20% of the activities give you 80% of the results. And you find the 20% that are very similar across these 5 people. I was like, they are the habits that I must have. And it's probably like, have some discipline, get some energy management in place, and start serving the world better. But that's my advice.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. If you're the most successful person in the room, you're in the wrong room. How do you define success?
Yeah, man, it's changed over the years. I think for me, when I was 26 and my dad was a pretty good business owner, entrepreneur. He had multiple businesses. And I remember when he passed away, I didn't have the best relationship with him, but I always wanted to prove him that, like, it was my own insecurities, right? But I always wanted to, like, prove him, like, I was going to be successful. And I wanted to make $1 million by the time I was 30. And I was 26. I was doing PT still, hadn't opened the gyms. And I was making 100, 200K a year, like somewhere in there. I was just doing PT. And I was like, dude, you were so out of integrity with what you said you were going to do by the time you were 30. You need to get your shit together. And that's when I started opening the gyms. One, it was like, I can't serve the people I want the way I want, working where I was. But 2, it's like, I'm so out of touch with the goals I set for myself when I was 17. I need to get back in touch and start moving forward in my life. I think like that is a big thing for me. And then, the next is like, I just totally lost your question on some rant that I was going on. What was the question again, dude?
How do you define success?
Oh, yeah. And then from that, so like first it was monetary. And then like I made the $1 million. I was like, this isn't success. It's like, this is just money. And I was like, money is easy. Money flows around the world. Like, I've grown the gyms to $10 million a year. I've had them at $1 million a year. I've had them I remember the first day I made 100K in a day. I was like, wow. Okay. And I woke up the next day and my alarm still went off. Like the sun was still shining the same. My wife was still sitting next to me. Like nothing changes with income. It's like, it's a hedonic adaptation. So there's a high and then there's a low. Anyone who's ever jumped on like stage with bodybuilding or anything like that, you work so hard for an event and then it's over. You might have had a nice picture. But like with this, like for me, like when I realized that, I was like, wow, like I'm just buying things to impress other people. And I thought that was my definition of success when I was in my 20s. I was like, what are you trying to prove? And again, it was my insecurities because I went through so many insecurities of like, I'm not just a personal trainer. So I started trying to prove to people I wasn't just a personal trainer. Like, no, I'm a successful business person. And then I realized that I was going down a route that was going to make me really unhappy and unfulfilled really fast because no amount of success in that definition was ever going to be enough. And now I shifted my success to be more so living as the best version of myself. It's like, okay, did I show up today? Am I being the best partner today towards my wife? Am I acting in line with my values today? Am I being a role model to my children today? Did I do what I said I was going to do today? So now success is really just living in line with my character traits on a daily basis and closing the gap between my potential on this earth, which is, infinite, and where I am today. And I'm so far away from that gap right now. Over the next 50 years, I'll hopefully close the gap. But every single day, I aim to close the gap on that day. And if I close the gap on that day, then it was a successful day. And if I do 6 of those days a week, well, it's a successful week. And if I do 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month, it was a successful month. And my daily success now makes me feel happy every single day. And I wake up successful, I go to bed successful. And like success is just the way I live my life. And I think now I never feel unfulfilled. I don't care if I'm making 20K or like $10 million. Like I'm successful in making 20K. I'm successful in making $10 million. Money is just a byproduct of how you want to serve the world. And like, that's just up to you and that's your choice.
Man, that is so fucking refreshing to hear. And it's really awesome to hear your take on that. When lockdown kicked off earlier this year, you know, people were like, how's this affected you, like mentally, physically, your business and everything like that? And I'm like, you know, I've got all this time to work on my projects now, and I'm doing the fucking things that I enjoy doing that bring me contentment, fulfillment every single day, man. You know, so many people lost their identity with, you know, not being associated with their work, their friends, their family and things like that. And they lost their identity, you know, and the mental health crisis is, you know, it's deepening, man. And I think that's because a lot of people don't really understand what their values are. They don't have those deep conversations with themselves. They don't reflect on, you know, what actually brings them happiness, what brings them fulfillment. And, you know, for me, happiness is not, it's an emotion. Like, it's a fleeting emotion that comes and goes. So if you put your livelihood, if you put your, you know, hang your happiness coat on other things, external things, then, you know, it's a never-ending pursuit. Whereas if you can be content with the life that you're living every single day, that's fucking happiness, man.
Yeah, I read somewhere, and I'm not going to quote it, but there's the difference between happiness and joy, right? Joy comes from doing the things you love. Happiness has come from acquiring certain things. So it's like, I can live with joy every single day of my life, and joy is so much better than happiness.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. The name of this podcast is Live, Train, Perform, and that stands for Live Life to the Fullest, Train to Your Potential, and Perform at Your Best. What does that mantra mean to you?
Self-actualization. So, like, I read when you said this is what it's called, and I looked at it, I was like, dude, that's just self-actualization. I think, you know, live life to your fullest, train to your potential, perform at your best. Like, for me, it's like, what is my potential in this life? And that all I have to do is show up every single day and close the gap on that and serve at my highest version of me. And then I'll have as close as I can to self-actualization, which is what I want on this earth, right? I want to achieve my potential. And if I have to be disciplined to do that. I have to keep showing up every day to do that. It's like, not team no days off as far as work, but it's team no days off as far as being your best self.
Yeah, I love that, man. I think that's a great point, great place to start winding up the episode. Travis, you clearly know your stuff, mate. I've really fucking enjoyed this conversation, man. If people want to work with you, because you do coach fit pros, you do have a business to allow people to, you know, build their best self. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they support you and join the journey with you?
Yeah, man, like the best place to find me is on Instagram. It's Travis Jones Entrepreneur, and just follow me on Instagram. For any fit pro out there, like, you can just reach out to me through the DMs. I always jump on the phone with most people. I have like 4 or 5 conversations a week, and I jump on the phone and I close the gap. It's like, where do you want to be in the next 90 days? And I give them a free plan. And it's like, hey, this is what you need to do. If you want some help to do it, let me know and I'll help you. If you don't want help and you believe you can do it, like, go for it. And I think, like, for me, again, like, my goal in life is trying to help as many people, you know, close that gap, whether it be in business or health and fitness. And yeah, Travis Jones Entrepreneur.
Yeah, man. For those listening, I really rate your social media page. Instagram is awesome, man. It's full of really fucking good content. It's not just, you know, pics of you with your abs and chest and biceps and shit like that. You are got a good rig on you, mate. But, you know, it's really good content as well. So it covers off on a lot of the stuff that we talk about in this episode. So if you're interested in reaching out to Travis, make sure you head over to those platforms. I'll have those all linked in the show notes. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate. And that rounds out the epic conversation that I had with Travis Jones. You can find him on Instagram at Travis Jones Entrepreneur. If you really enjoyed this conversation, make sure you share this on your social media platforms and tag myself at Coach Cobes, Kobes, and Travis Jones, so that we can share it on our platforms. If you enjoyed this conversation and you think that your friends and family members can benefit from it, please make sure you pass it off to them, and any 5-star ratings and reviews are appreciated. Much love, guys. Peace.